Make a start. Welcome everybody. My name's Simon Wilson. I'm the course director for this postgraduate program in statistics and data science at Trinity College Dublin. What I'm going to do today is give a presentation, maybe 15, 20 minutes at most, telling you something about the program. And then there'll be lots of time for questions afterwards. Until the hour is up, basically, we'll if there are questions. You can ask a question in really two ways. One is there's a Q&A option or chat, and you can write your question in there, and when I finish speaking, I'll just go through those questions in order. And you can also raise your hand and speak, but I think most people prefer to write down their question for me to answer. So those are two ways you can do it. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying a little bit about whether this is the course for you. So who typically takes this course and why do they do it? So the first thing to mention is that it's a 3-year program, but you can exit the program after each year, and assuming you've been successful, get a postgraduate award. So the first year of the program, you're working towards what's called a postgraduate certificate. This is a very introductory course in statistics. We don't assume any prior knowledge of statistics at all. If you complete that successfully, you can leave the program with your certificate, or you can decide to continue on to a second year, and then you're studying for what's called a postgraduate diploma, so a slightly higher level of award. In year 2, the program gets more technical, a bit more mathematical, because we're looking at more advanced methods. And at the end of year 2, if you're successful, you can exit the program with a diploma, or you can apply to stay on for third year to study towards a master's. So I'll give you more details about these 3 years and what they look like during this presentation. So the course is primarily focused on statistical methods, but it also looks at some non-statistical aspects of the more general area of data science, which also includes topics around managing data and things like that. It's a part-time program, so it's designed for people who are doing something else. You're working or you're doing some other study or something like that. And typically, the students that take the course will do it for the reasons given here. So they're interested in just improving their knowledge of how to use and interpret common statistical techniques to advance their own career. You might be a researcher, typically a PhD student, who sees that they'll need some statistical analysis in their research, but don't have much experience of it. So this course will help you with that. And we also have people who are considering a career change into data science from some other subject. And this course would be a good way to sort of get you started on that if you have very little experience of statistical methods up to now. To get into the program, these are the entrance requirements. So we ask that you have a, a bachelor's degree or a first degree, and that can be in any subject. It doesn't have to be at all related to statistics. And it has to be at a particular level. So for those of you in Ireland and UK, we ask that your degree is at the grade of 2-1 or first. If you're in other countries, we have sort of some sort of equivalent requirement, but it basically means you've obtained your degree to a reasonably high standard. You also have to demonstrate some knowledge of mathematics, and what we say is that if you studied mathematics to the end of high school, or you did an introductory maths course in your degree, then that will be sufficient. Particularly the first year of the program is not designed to be technical. We try and keep the mathematics to a minimum, but ultimately statistics, is a mathematical subject, and you need to know some mathematics, basic calculus, differentiation, integration, and manipulating matrices are really the two things that you typically will need. Um, okay, so if we start looking at the uh, program by year, um, in the first year, this is what you'll study. So you have four modules, two in each semester. So first semester runs from September to December, and the second from January to April. In the first semester, you'll be introduced to the basic ideas and methods of statistics. Um, and you'll also be introduced to the R programming language. So that's just the letter R. This is a open source programming language that allows you to do all sorts of statistical analyses. Um, so we'll teach you the basics of that and how to implement the methods that you're learning in R and interpret the result. In the second semester, you look at regression. So this is a whole series of statistical techniques that explore the relationships between different things we observe. Um, and then we'll also do a module called Foundations of Data Science 1. And this is where we start to look at non-statistical aspects of data science. So in this module, you look at things like some information systems. How do we manage data? You look at what's known as machine learning. So these are other ways of using data to make predictions. We look at another programming language called Python. And you'll also look at issues around security and privacy of data as well. Uh, if you successfully pass the first year and you want to continue on to year two for the diploma, then this is what you'll study. So one thing to say about this is that, of course, you can continue straight into the second year of the program. So that would be in September 26. Um, or you can return to do it at any point up to 5 years after having completed the third year. Right? So you see here the module titles that you look at. So there are six modules now, and they're just looking at more advanced statistical methods. There's another Foundations of Data Science module, which again is looking at other non-statistical aspects of data science. Okay, and then if you successfully complete the diploma year, then you have the option to continue into year three. So if you just continued on the course without stopping, that would be September 27. You also are allowed to come back and do this third year up to 5 years after having completed the second year of the program. One thing to say about this is while for progressing to the second year, there's really not particularly a restriction on numbers. We could, in principle, take everybody who does the cert into the diploma year. For the Master of Science year, that's not the case because for this year, you're not doing any taught modules. You're not being taught as a lecture course as you would normally, but you're working with a supervisor on a dissertation, research dissertation. And that's obviously more resource intensive. We only have limited numbers of places to be able to do that. So this year, for example, we have about 10 slots available. Um, so in the case that more people than places want to do the program, we basically choose based on the year two performance. This is all done again entirely online. So no need ever to come onto the TCD campus even for this year. So yeah, so one aspect of this program that's important is that it is completely online. Yeah, so there's no need to come to TCD campus at all for any aspect of the course. So that's classes, laboratories, tutorials, any sort of assessment. So of course the advantage of that is that it's open to people who couldn't access our campus in Dublin each week. And it allows you some flexibility, at least in when you study for the course during each week. For the third master's year, what we say is that if you do happen to live near TCD campus, you can, of course, come in person and talk to your supervisor. But but that's not necessary. It's not assumed that that's what's going to happen. Right, so I'll say something about how a fully online program works. So the way we organize this program is that each week, and the way we've done it so far is actually each Friday, um, we release a new set of material onto Trinity's online website. So when you register for the program, you'll be given access to Trinity's online teaching website. So you log into that, and you will see the different modules that the course has, and you'll be able to access those. And each week, a new set of material will appear for you to look at. And you work through that material, and that consists typically of some reading, there'll be a video lecture, some homework, maybe a short quiz to test your knowledge, and you work through that at your own pace. Each week as well, we have live sessions with TCD teaching staff. So for the year one, the certificate year, where we have by far the most students, we will typically run those 3 or 4 times a week. Up to now, they've been run about 5:30 or 6 p.m. Irish time, Monday through Thursday. Um, we are open to changing those if there are students who for which that time of the day does not suit. Yeah. So you have a mixture of studying yourself through the course, through the coursework on the online system, and also being able to access teaching staff to answer questions, go through homework, that kind of thing. Your grade or mark for each module is determined through a mixture of homework, projects, and possibly a take-home exam, depending on the exact module. And then your overall course grade for each year is some kind of weighted average of those module marks, weighted by the number of credits that the module is worth. So just to dive into that a little more deeply, the first session of the first week of the program uh, will look something like this. Well, actually, Trinity is migrating over to a new version of this online teaching system. So for you, it won't look exactly like this, but the content will be the same. It'll just look a bit different. Um, and you can see several sections of work there for you to look at: introduction, prepare, study, apply, and so on. And on the left-hand side is a menu. That menu actually is disappearing in the updated version, but uh, basically it will show you sort of each week that you've done so far will be available for you to go back and look at and so on. There'll be a section for announcements. The course lecturer may give you announcements and so on, and they'll be all accessible from a menu. Um, So one element here, the third one down, the study element, that's usually the main online element, which consists of a online lecture. And if we go into that, this is typically what you have. So you'll have the option to play the video lecture. The slides for the lecture will also be available as a PDF. And there's typically also an audio version of the lecture for you to listen to as well. So you can sort of choose which one of those you want to look at. So each week, new content is released. There are some live sessions for you to attend. Um, and then the next Friday comes along and the whole thing repeats. A new set of material is released and so on. Okay, so how to apply? So applications are through TCD's online course application system. So there's a link to the page which shows you, how to apply and so on. So it's all done online. The application deadline for this year is 31st of July. So you must submit your application by that date. Fees. So fees for this coming year are about €3,000 if you're a European Union student, and a bit more than €7,000 for a non-EU student. Um, Fees do change from year to year. I mean, in recent times, they've not changed by very much, but it is possible that they would change from year to year, of course. How do you get the cheaper EU fee? It's essentially based on residency in the European Union for study or work. It's not based on citizenship. So you can be a non-EU citizen who's living here and studying or working and still be eligible for that EU fee. Uh, the exact rule is somewhat complicated. There's a link there um, which will describe it in more detail. And the college ultimately decides who they think is eligible for that EU fee and who isn't. The other thing I'd say about fees is that many of you studying this program will also be studying another full-time degree in Trinity College, typically the PhD. And if that's the case, then as long as you're registered for that program in 25, 26, this fee would be waived for you. So you would not have to pay it. You've already paid a fee to do your primary program, and you're not going to be asked for a second set of fees for this program as well. Okay, that's the link to the course website. So that contains lots of information about all aspects of this program, more details on each module that's taught and what's taught within it, how to apply, there's an FAQ and so on and so forth. But certainly feel free to email me at this address if you have another query that you feel is not being answered there. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. Probably what I'm going to do now is stop sharing and move to the Q&A. So, as I said, I think most people find it convenient to just type a question into the Q&A, and then I'm going to go through them now and answer them in order. And we can do that until the hour, 2 p.m. Irish time, assuming there are more questions. Okay, so I'll start off with Camilla has asked, where can I find what the International Baccalaureate Maths entry requirements are? If I understand your question rightly, I think basically if you have studied mathematics all the way through your baccalaureate, then that's going to be more than sufficient. There's no formal requirement for the maths. I mean, we don't ask for a certificate or anything like that. Um, it's just that if I see you've done that baccalaureate and I see that you've studied mathematics to the end of it, then that'll be fine. That's more than enough. Um, if you get a place on the program and then before the term starts, I send some resources to everybody for the sort of mathematics that you need. It's basically calculus, so differentiation and integration, and then some knowledge of how to work with matrices and vectors. But I send out some resources that show you sort of what you need to know for that. So Emma asks, will live lectures be recorded and available to watch back later? Yes, they do. So we aim to record at least one of the live sessions each week. So you have access to that if you can't make any of the live sessions. Um, and how does the time commitment change from year one to year two? So that's a good question. So the amount of time this program takes each week really seems to vary a lot from student to student. We think the average is about 10 hours a week. So it's not it's a reasonably big commitment to take on. But I think some students it's less than that. Some students it may be more. We find students whose maybe maths background is not so strong, they end up maybe taking a little bit more time to get through the stuff, through the program each week. As far as we know, the time commitment from year one to year two is about the same. There's not much change, I don't think. So Jennifer, I think I've just answered your question about the weekly hourly commitment. So we say about 10 hours a week on average, but there's quite a bit of variation from student to student on that. Yeah. So Luke has the next question, which I think is the same one. So yeah, we've answered that. Sarah asks, as a computer science alumnus with experience in software, would it be possible for me to complete both the certificate and diploma programs within 1 year? So no, it's not. And the reason basically being that uh, we basically don't have the resources to run, everything in 1 year at sort of twice the rate. And in order to progress to the diploma year, you have to have passed the certificate year. So unfortunately, there's no way to turn this into sort of a full-time program that would be if you were trying to do 2 years in one. Um, Anna asks, do you have any special offer for Trinity staff? So Anna, I understand that HR, this is a question for HR. I think there is some kind of discount for Trinity staff, but I'm not completely clear what it is. Sometimes your school can be persuaded to cover some of the cost for you as well. That has happened. Um, Aoife asks, do you know what the approximate time commitment per week is? Yes, so yeah, as you said, 10 hours on average, but with high variation. Yeah. And then the next question from Anonymous, yeah, it's the same. So yeah, so TCD staff do have to pay the fee, but there may be some kind of discount. And if you're a postdoc in particular, maybe talk to your supervisor about um, support for the fee. Um, so Barry Horgan asks, are live sessions 4 days, Monday to Thursday? Does that change across semesters? No. So typically we have for year one, we have done Monday through Thursday, given that new content's released on a Friday. So it's like over the weekend, people have a chance to look at it, and then they attend one or more of those live sessions Monday to Thursday. Uh, for year two, the diploma year, there are far fewer students, and we've typically only run one or two live sessions per week because the numbers are much smaller. Eleanor asks, as a PhD student with a lot of field work, how have you seen the workload balanced in the past for other PhD students? And to clarify again, if we are a PhD student, then there are no additional fees. Right. So yeah. So first of all, I mean, it does of course happen as a PhD student. You take on this program, and at some point in the year, you know, something comes up which requires a big time commitment for your PhD, and you just feel not able to continue with this program, and that does happen. There are various options for you to sort of defer it and so on. That we usually talk to you about if you're in that situation. But as I said, it is a reasonably big commitment. So certainly, I think you should go into it feeling happy that you can make that sort of time commitment each week. And don't forget, it's 22 weeks of the year is the teaching, right? So it's not the whole year, yeah, between September and April. Yes, so just to clarify, as a PhD student, you'll be hit with the application fee when you apply. But then when it comes to register in September, as long as you are already registered for your PhD, then the fee will be waived. You'll not get a fee demand. So next question, Anonymous. When doing a PhD, do you get ECTS or a cert? Right, so I think I know what this question is about. So many of you doing PhDs, you have a taught uh, component to the PhD. You have to do a certain number of credits successfully. Um, so people do modules on this that they're in this program to meet that taught PhD requirement. So they might do the first module or 15 credits or something like that, whatever they need to do. Now, the point about that is you can't double count. So you can't use these credits both to get a cert and satisfy your PhD requirement. You have to make a choice between the two. What do assessments look like in year one? So there's a big mixture. So a lot of it is homeworks and projects. There are also some take-home exams. So these are exams that are released on the online system, and you have to upload your answer within a certain amount of time. So that also happens. Claire asks, are non-EU students able to obtain a visa to be in Ireland? No, so Ireland will not issue a student visa to study a part-time program. And then in particular, a part-time online program, they're unfortunately not going to give you a visa to come to Ireland to study it. Is there a different application procedure if you're currently a TCD student? No, it's exactly the same procedure. So you go onto the online application system and yeah, you fill in the application and attach all the documents. So Mide, apologies if I pronounced that name wrongly. Do How you'd recommend balancing time between this course tiering and data collection? Um, so no, I don't have particularly a recommended structure. It's for PhD students because PhD studies are extremely diverse in Trinity and in how they go about things. What I would say is that we release new content on a Friday, uh, specifically because that gives everyone the weekend to look at the new content. So I think what most students on the program do is they'll look at the content over the weekend, try and do most of it, attend one or more of the online sessions Monday to Thursday, so that by Thursday they've completed everything and then they're ready to start the next week. I mean, that's typically, but it really just depends on how your own PhD time is structured and where you might be able to fit in the time to take on this program as well. So someone else asks, as part of this program, will we have access to the campus? Will we be able to join clubs and societies? Yes. So yes, if you happen to live near TCD campus, uh, and you're not otherwise associated with the Trinity, you can come in and get a Trinity ID. And then with that, you have access to the library and other facilities. Yeah. Um, so what I would say is the fee that this course charges is somewhat less than an equivalent face-to-face program. And part of the reason is that because we recognize that most of our students won't be able to use the campus facilities. But if you happen to live close by, then you can. Next question, to what years of the program does the fee waiver apply? So it applies to any year where you're also registered as a PhD student. So, I mean, in principle, you could get all the way to the third master's year, as long as for those 3 years you were registered as a PhD student. Um, with regard to ECTS, can the student select modules of interest? Yes, so you can. I mean, depending on how much prior knowledge you have, you could choose any of the modules in the certificate or diploma year. Yeah. Most PhD students who are doing these modules for their PhD credit and not for an award for a certificate will do first semester, the first semester of the certificate modules, the introductory ones. But there's no particular reason why you have to do that. You register basically by going through your own school's teaching unit and asking to register. Uh, Luke asks, when will you send the info on recommended prior knowledge calculus? So I typically do that in August, like a month or so before. Once I sort of understand, really once I see who's accepted a place on the program and so on, and I have sort of clarity on that, then I send on the work on the resources. Barry asks, can you please clarify, are the online evening sessions repeats within the week or different? So usually, so let's take the certificate, the first year, where we might have 4 such sessions a week. Um, Usually the first 3, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, are essentially the same. They're what we might call like an office hour, an online office hour. So the idea is you can come in, ask a question about something you don't understand, and then if you want, you can leave or you can stay for the whole hour or hour and a half, whatever it is, if you want. Um, the last session on a Thursday that's usually with a teaching assistant. The last one on Thursday is usually with the module lecturer, and that might go through the homework and the quiz or whatever that was set this week. So yeah, they tend to be slightly different. So the first few are kind of the same, and most students, I would say, actually only attend one of them. Some attend all 3. It's really up to you. And then the Thursday is different because it's with the module lecturer. Is the PG dip 1 year or 2 years? So to get the postgraduate diploma, you need to study the 2 years. So you need to study the first year of the program for a certificate. Okay, and if you're successful, you can then carry on into the diploma year, the second year. And at the end of that second year, if you're successful, you would have a diploma. Is there high employability after this course? Right, so I would say most of the people who take it um, are either already employed and they're basically looking to for some career advancement or develop their career, or they're PhD students looking to do this to help their research. Um, so we tend to have fewer people, I think, who are doing it in order to then find a job. I would say um, if you're looking to move into data science from some other field, then this course is a good sort of first step to that because it takes you through the basics. Um, what we like to think is that by the time you got to the end of the diploma, you'd be in a position to go somewhere and do a full, technical master's in data science, right? Which is not what we're really offering. Yeah. Um, so I hope that answers that question. Excuse me, let's take a. Okay. I have a bunch of questions that people had uh, sent prior to the um, meeting and prior to the webinar. So I'm just going to take a quick look at those um, as we got to the end of the questions in the Q&A and see if there's any that we haven't been covered so far. Um, so someone asks, are there scholarships for the masters? Unfortunately not. There are no scholarships. Trinity provides no scholarships, unfortunately, for this program. Or to be honest, in taught masters programs in general have very few scholarships in Trinity. Scholarships are almost exclusively for full-time PhDs. Um, let's see. Uh, someone asked, I have a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery from Somalia with several years of experience in hospitals. Am I eligible to study? So, as I mentioned, all we look for is a first degree in any subject. So, it looks like you have a bachelor's in medicine, so that's fine. And then we would look for some background in mathematics, as I also mentioned. So, as long as you'd studied mathematics to high school, um, then yeah, you would be eligible. I also should mention that if English is not your first language, you also have to satisfy Trinity's English language requirement for postgraduate study. Uh, Emma asks, should you use year one as a PhD module course? Can you still qualify for the diploma? No, you can't. So basically, a postgraduate diploma requires 60 credits of modules successfully passed. Um, so that's all the modules in year one and all the modules in year two. So if you take any of those out to put towards your PhD program, you're not going to have the 60 credits for a diploma, unfortunately. Let's see. Someone asks, when does the course begin and how long does it take? Yeah, so the course begins, I think teaching in Trinity is beginning, I think it's the second Monday in September, something like that. Or maybe even the third, somewhere in the middle of September. I don't want to commit to an exact date. Um, the week before that first week of teaching, there'll be an orientation session online. And then the Friday before teaching begins will be the day that the first content is released. Someone asks, any text-based analysis and visualization covered in the course? So we certainly do quite a lot on sort of graphing data, so visualizing data. In actually, the very first session is largely concerned with that. We don't do a lot about text analysis. Um, yeah, that's not really covered in this program. So Nicola asks, can you do the cert alone and come out with a good basis for medical statistics? So I would say if you've done the cert, you should be in the position where a lot of what you do in medical statistics has been covered, or at the very least, you'll be in a position to understand it and implement it. And particularly because you've studied the R language um, quite extensively, you should have a fairly good idea about how to implement various methods in medical statistics, even if you haven't studied them yet. So yeah, you should be in a fairly good position after the cert. So Benji asks, my bachelor's degree is mathematics, master's is numerical analysis, PhD is computer science. Right. So if you're asking about applying for the PhD program, that's a completely separate program. The way you apply for that is also very different, particularly if you need a scholarship to do the PhD. Then it tends to be very competitive, obviously, for those scholarships. Um, so really, all I can do is refer you to the college's graduate studies website where it talks about applying for a PhD. Did that answer that question? Let's see. I'm just working through these list of questions that people had asked earlier. Um, I think we may have covered most of those. Bum, bum, bum. Yep, I think we have covered most of those already. Okay, everyone, I'm just going to wait another minute or so and see if anyone else has any other questions they want to ask me. Um, as I said, feel free to email me as well. Um, if you want, have any question. Um, I'm planning to run in 2 weeks' time a further session like this where we go through the first week's content on the program. Um, just to give you a better idea about what that looks like. And so Michael, who's been advertising this webinar, he will send out details of that once we have them all organized. But I'm hoping to do that at the same time in 2 weeks, so Friday, 20th of June. Okay, a couple more questions here. Can part-time PhD students apply for this? Right, that is a very good question. Uh, are you still eligible for the fee waiver? Um, I think the rule is it must be a full-time program. Um, but we can certainly inquire. If you get in touch with me separately with that question, that'll prompt me maybe to inquire and confirm whether that's the case or not. Last question. If you're enrolled as a PhD student, you need a letter from your current. Yes, you do need permission from your supervisor to do this program. So what happens is, as part of the application process, we ask for two references. If you're a Trinity PhD, those two references can essentially just be your supervisor. So your supervisor has to write your reference, which basically says, yes, I give permission for you to study this program. So that's sort of how that works. Okay, everyone. I'm thinking that's perhaps everyone's questions exhausted. Uh, as I said, please feel free to email me if with a question if you uh, think of one subsequently, and I'll be try to answer you as quickly as I can. Oh, I see one more. Can you audit the semester one modules? So, yeah, we typically haven't um, done that, but again, that's something maybe just email me separately about. Um, um, and I can answer you more thoroughly on that. Yeah. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you very much for attending. Hopefully that was useful and gave you a good sense of this program. Um, look out for information on the session I'll do in 2 weeks' time. As I said, the idea of that is to just basically go through the first week's content and show you sort of how that looks, so you get a good sense of what a typical week in the program might look like.